Good afternoon, everyone. We are live now. Satya, can we please start?
Thanks, Riya. May I request Shruti to please initiate the session?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Satya. A very warm good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to the awareness session on apprenticeship. So I am Shruti Kapoor, and I lead economic opportunities for young people at Yuva. At Yuva, we are basically a partnership platform, and so we try to bring different stakeholders together on a platform to create these kind of awareness, to do these kind of awareness sessions. So the session that is happening today is basically a part of a series of sessions that we conduct every month, where we bring in different kind of employers like yourself on a platform to create awareness. And then after the session, we provide you hand-holding support in case you want to introduce apprenticeship in your organization or any other further support that you require from us. The session is basically driven by a working group. So in December last year, Yuva came up with a working group, convened members from different organizations across the country, something that you can already see on your screen, as members of this working group. And this overall idea of starting an awareness session began with recommendation from the working group members. So I'm really thankful to all our working group members to take up this initiative and support us month on month in carrying out this exercise. With this, I would now invite Mr. Jan Iben, who is the apprenticeship advisor at NSDC, National Skills Corporation, Skill Development Corporation. Over to you, Jan, to open up the session. Sorry, you are on mute.
Thank you, Shruti, for the introduction and for reminding me to unmute. It still happens, even though we are so used to doing these webinars. Good afternoon to all participants, and good afternoon to colleagues from UNICEF Yuva. Appreciate the opportunity to do this industry engagement, which is really a primary objective of NSDC and the apprenticeship division. To go out and explain to industries, to human resources specialists, the benefits of apprenticeship for their own companies as well as for the youth of India. For introduction, it's always good to point to the Apprentices Act, which has been in force since 1961, and which was brought in, as we see here under point A and point B, to regulate and promote industry, the apprenticeship training in the industry, and to use the facilities and the resources of industries to impart on-the-job training. Ulterior objective of this, of course, is to make the workforce of India and the industries of India more competitive, and to provide opportunities for the youth. And these two motives for an Apprentices Act, I think they're just as valid today as they have been back in 1961. At the time, India was one of the earliest countries to have an Apprentices Act, and it was quite a progressive piece of legislation, but its limit came about because it was to promote apprenticeship in large industries. And until now, the smaller industries, the MSMEs, have been a little bit out of sight, and any effort to increase and to grow apprenticeship in India will require to take a closer look and take more into focus MSMEs. Anyways, if you look at the table on the right, you can see that at this point we have about 155,000 companies, 1.55 lakh registered on the apprentices portal. There are 30,000 plus companies that are actively engaged in apprenticing. There's a huge number of candidates that are registered, but the registration alone and by itself doesn't matter so much. What of course matters is the number of apprentices that are under active contracts, and the number of this is 11 lakh, which, given the size of the Indian economy, may not sound like an awfully large number, but we have come over the past few years from a very low starting point. So this is really encouraging and already represents a good pattern of growth. And if I may ask Satya to go on to the next slide. Thank you. Again, here we see current data, the 11 lakh of apprentices that are that have been engaged cumulatively. The apprentices that have active contracts that have been engaged in the last financial year is a little bit over 5 lakh, but I'm also happy to report that actually as of today, we've crossed the 6 lakh of active apprenticeships. And it is good to look at what are the top 5 sectors and what are the top five states. And these are automotive, retail, IT, power, and electronics. No surprise given the industrial structure of the country, and the top 5 states are Maharashtra, Gujarat, Haryana, Tamil Nadu, and Uttar Pradesh. UP is a newcomer under the top 5. It has come in for the first time in this year. But other than that, obviously, those states that have a strong industrial infrastructure are also the ones that take in the most apprentices. And if we go over a little bit to the right, we see numbers for Telangana, and actually covered. I'll have to close this. Okay, now I can see it. In Telangana, we have right now 33,986 active contracts, and that would come to about 6.5% of all the active contracts that there are in India. So that's for Telangana actually quite a good number, because the share, the Telangana share of active contracts is larger than the share of the population of Telangana in all of India. We can move on to the next slide already. For context, I think it is worthwhile remembering that apprenticeship is an age-old tradition. It is time-honored. It has been the preferred mode of transferring knowledge from one generation to the next, all over the world, be it in India, be it in Europe. Actually, at the time of the Renaissance, at the Elizabethan time, apprenticeship was the most important social and economic institution of the country. But since then, apprenticeship in England, especially since the time of industrialization, had been neglected. Under Manchester capitalism, one might say industries needed more robot type of people rather than well-skilled and self-confident workers. So one might say that the relatively underdeveloped state of apprenticeship that we find in India today is partly also a colonial legacy. Government of India has taken a lot of very good approaches since 2018 to promote apprenticeship, to make it more flexible, to make it more easy, to make it more industry friendly. Some of these things we will also see in the course of the presentation. But especially throughout 2020, throughout the first year of COVID, we have seen a surprising growth of apprenticeship. And I think it shows that employers are ready to take up apprenticeship because it is a more stable source of supply for labor. And the COVID crisis has taught us that one should not take the availability of employees, of staff for granted. So it does turn out to be a viable sourcing strategy. It results in a highly skilled workforce in committed teams and in a higher retention rate and substantially lower staff turnover. And for the youth, of course, the real benefit is that they earn as they learn, which is also a real advantage over an academic career. However, the persisting problem that we have is, quite unfortunately, that the social prestige of apprenticeship as compared to academic pathways is still relatively low. Next slide. Here we take a view at the stakeholder map. We take a view of the stakeholders in the apprenticeship ecosystem. We begin at the left-hand side with government, where the Ministry of Skills Development and Entrepreneurism is the line ministry, under which, of course, the National Skills Development Corporation, which I represent here, falls under. I think, given the fact that we're also taking a look at NATS today, we should also mention that the Ministry of Education is an important government agency and important stakeholder. Sector Skill Council are the primary institutions when it comes to the design of apprenticeship courses, curricula, when it comes to assessment and certification. Under optional trades, I will get into this. So a hugely important stakeholder in the regulation and oversight of apprenticeship in the country. TPAs, third-party aggregators, are very useful partners to industries when it comes to implementing and managing apprenticeship, because an industry, especially one that is new to apprenticeship, can avail itself to the services of a third-party aggregator to manage anything from the mobilization of candidates to curating the contracts, the apprentices' contracts, to organizing basic training, to anything you could think of, finally, all the way through to assessment and certification. This can be sourced out by industries and taken over by third-party aggregators, who have also been a very important driver of the growth of apprenticeship, because many companies have found it difficult to do the first steps, but they have overcome these difficulties thanks to the support of TPAs. Then we have the basic training providers. When there is basic training as part of the entire apprenticeship, basically it means that the first few weeks of an apprenticeship period are in classroom preparation for the on-the-job training. This can be done by external training partners, BTPs, and they are also very helpful. Industry bodies, for example, we have here CII and NASCOM, both of which, incidentally, CII is also a third-party aggregator. NASCOM is also a sector skill council. So there are some overlaps. They represent the industry sector-wise, and then provide services to them. Also, when it comes to legislation reform of apprenticeship, they are the voices of industries. Industries, of course, are employers. They are at the micro level, the most important stakeholders, together with the candidates. Then we have institutions and colleges, which include, of course, ITIs. Colleges, very important in the degree apprenticeship, which is also growing quite a bit. NGOs, charitable organizations are important. I also want to bring in here increasing role of international bilateral organizations, such as GIZ, for example, but also multinational organizations like UNICEF, like ILO, that are also increasingly important. And last but not least, the candidates who become apprentices themselves. And beyond them, of course, there are more stakeholders if you consider the families of the candidates also as being very important. So apprenticeship is one economic and social institutions that is characterized by a multitude of stakeholders, many of which, of course, have converging rather than diverging interests, which I think makes it promising to grow apprenticeship in the future to come. What is in it for me is the question here, and of course that is the question that would be posed by any industry partner. Why should an industry, why should a company, why should specifically maybe the HR representative of the company say, we want to get engaged in apprenticeship? But there are numerous benefits, which are broad benefits as well as very specific benefits. But let's go to the lower right side of the of the circle where it says workforce pipeline. And I think this is the one that's the most convincing argument, because apprenticeship creates a more or less constant stream or supply of skilled workers that will be available in the mid to the long term of a company. So they are a very important part of an HR sourcing strategy. Apprenticeship is not there to plug the gaps, but for any company that has an HR strategy that looks into the future, that is concerned about the reliability of the HR supply, apprenticeship is a superb instrument. It is supported by the government, and this is how we switch all the way to the right through a number of programs and exemptions. The financial supports are NAPS and NATS. NAPS, which is represented by NSDC, basically means that there is a support of 1,500 rupees per apprentice stipend, but because it is capped at 1,500, it almost always comes out to be 1,500 per month for the period of the apprenticeship. And that's the National Apprenticeship Training Scheme, provides, depending on the educational achievement of the person, for up to 1 year, either 4,000 rupees for diploma candidates and vocational apprentices, or 4,500 for graduate apprentices. Also important to know is that there is CSR that can count towards apprenticeship expenditures, can count towards CSR. So any expenditure that a company has that goes above the minimum stipulated take-in of 2.5% apprentices can be counted towards corporate social responsibility tax. On the broad level, of course, the benefit is enhancing employability for the youth, building the nation through skilling and making India what the government achieves to do, the skills capital of the world. Of course, it also gives the good conscience to any corporate player that they are in full compliance with the law, because the Apprentices Act says that every company is required to take in apprentices in a bandwidth of a minimum of 2.5% apprentices to a maximum of 2.5% apprentices. So manifold benefits, strategic sourcing benefits, as well as immediate financial benefits that would apply to any company that takes in apprentices. And taken together, NAPS or NATS plus CSR makes it also a financially quite attractive package. Now we can go to the next slide. And we'll have a quick look at what are the government and regulating and oversight bodies that we have here. And there are, of course, there's the central government, and then there are the state governments. But let me begin with the central government all the way on the left. There's the Ministry of Education, formerly Ministry of Human Resources Development, under which are the boards of apprenticeship training, or Board of Practical Training, as it is called in the Northeast. And they are the ones who have the oversights over NATS, National Apprenticeship Training Scheme. A little bit towards the right is the part of the three branches that come under the Ministry of Skills Development and Entrepreneurism. That divides into two further branches: Directorate General Training, under which come the regional directorates. And then you have NSDC a little bit on the right, under which come the Sector Skill Council. And for future reference, it is important to know that this blue part of the central government is in charge of the National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme. And then all the way on the right, you have the state governments with the state apprenticeship advisors and the state skills development missions. They will be important to corporates who take in apprentices whenever they operate in less than 4 states, because if they operate in more than 4 states, they will fall under the central government's jurisdiction. Thank you for that. Which is an overview of the apprenticeship schemes, and we have spoken about NAPS and NATS, but this slide will help us to understand it in a more systematical way. But I do understand the colleague who represents NATS is also here and will take a little bit of the action later on. So please let me concentrate now on what is under NAPS, MSDE, and Category 1 and Category 2 in this slide. And you might simply say that Category 1 here refers to everything which has to do with designated trades, whereas what is under Category 2 on the right-hand side refers to anything that has to do with optional trades. And here's the difference between the two. Designated trades are trades that are, the word says is, they are designated by the central government. They are curated by an organization which sits in Kolkata and is called CISTARI, the Central Staff Training and Research Institute. They are the ones who make the curricula and to create the qualifications for the designated trades, which after all the work that has been done, the preparatory work by CISTARI, they get approved by NCVT and then published in the National Gazette. On the side of optional trades, that's the column now under Category 2, come all the trades that are self-created by industries, not by the government, simply because the industries say that they are particularly relevant, and they have come to be relevant. They have come to grow, especially in the services sector and the IT sector over the last years. But we also increasingly now find them in the traditional industries. But it is the opportunity for an industry, with the support of a sector skill council, with the support of a TPA, with the support of NSDC, can create their own demand-driven, very specific courses, including curricula and qualifications. The final assessment and certification then is done by Sector Skill Council. The stipend, I would like to draw your attention to, would be the same over any of the different modes of apprenticeship, but they come from a minimum of 5,000. Now, these are the prescribed minimum stipends, and the minimum stipend is 5,000 rupees for a 5th class pass out, and then depending on the educational achievement all the way up to a graduate apprentice, the minimum stipend would be 9,000. And we'd be certainly glad to help you with finding out what the right level of stipend is. We'll have the hand-holding to come in the second part of this session. They are supposed to rise by a margin every year. The establishment is not going to shoulder the entire cost of the stipend, because through NAPS, National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme, 1,500 rupees or 25% of the stipend, whichever is more, will be reimbursed. The reimbursement also includes cost of basic training up to 7,500 rupees for a session of 500 hours. So that's in a nutshell the apprenticeship schemes and the financial support schemes for designated trades and for optional trades. There's a question? No? I thought...
Jan,
yes.
Jan, I request Paul to talk about NATS here. And then
that would be the right point in time for him to do this.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Mr. Satya, and thank you, Mr. Jan Eben, for guiding us through all the the Apprentices Act and all the categories involved
And anyway,
and all the bodies involved in implementing it. And my name is Paul Edward. I am the Assistant Director for AP and Telangana region. I represent Board of Apprenticeship Training, Southern Region, Chennai. So just to add a few points to what Mr. Jain was saying, everything from NAT's point of view has also been covered by Mr. Yan in his presentation. So just to touch upon a few points, I would like to mention here, there is being some updates being made in the NATs also. The duration has been made as in the NAPS also. It is made flexible from 6 months to 36 months. So the duration is from 6 months to 3 years. So it is not fixed to 1 year, and it has been changed recently. So the update has been made, but the reimbursement will be fixed only for 1 year. So if you could see the reimbursement, the 50% of 9,000 for a graduate and 50% of 8,000 of diploma, that is 4,000 rupees. The reimbursement is fixed only for a duration of 1 year. But the industry, based on the industry's requirement, the industry can opt for either in a duration, any duration from 6 months to 36 months. This is the recent update which has been made, and also you might be knowing that the non-engineering graduates, that is the graduates in general stream, the BA, BSc, BCom, BCA, BBA, etc., has been recently included in the NATS also. And after the 1 year, the certificate, the experience certificate by establishment, there a Government of India certificate will be issued from both also. A Government of India certificate will be issued from both side also. So these are the recent updates which has been happened. And other than that, everything Mr. Yan has already covered. So there is nothing for me here to give more about that. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Satya, and thank you, Mr. Yan. You can please.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Jan. So we can move to the next slide. Yeah.
Yes, while we're at it, Satya, there was just a question if there is something like a maximum stipend amount. So if you don't mind, I'll just take it up and answer it, because there is not. The only thing there is a minimum stipend, and this is because of concern that that apprenticeship should not be any exploitative scheme. So this has been there through the centuries. So government has said there is a minimum stipend, but there is no upwards limit, and especially in some industries, there is actually some competition going on over the best of candidates, and industries pay stipends that go well above 20,000 rupees per month. So that is entirely possible. Entities is up to the enterprises to decide it as per their needs. Thank you. But we can go on to the next slide now.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, these are pretty much the major milestones that we have seen in the development since the 1961 Apprentices Act, which came in 1961, which was very progressive at the time. Comparing it, my own country, Germany, we only had our Apprentices Act in 1969. Very many similarities, though, back then compared to India. So we can say India was pretty much a model for the world there. The only country that I know that had an Apprentices Act before 1961 was Switzerland, by the way. Anyway, it was broadened and to include more categories of apprentices. So you see here 1973 to include graduate and technician apprentices. Those are university or college students who take an apprenticeship in parallel and do their on-the-job training in a company. We had 1986 an amendment to the Act to include 10+2 vocational stream, vocationalization of the last 2 years of school. Apprenticeship rules were brought in 1992. So you have the Act, and as bylaw to the Act, the apprenticeship rules. We also have NAPS guidelines today, but the apprenticeship rules basically define all the trades, the crafts and trades that come under the Apprenticeship Act, and give a minimum definition of the qualification that comes in here. more amendments coming in 2014, very dynamically developing. But a big breakthrough was then the shifting of apprenticeship to the Ministry of Skills Development and Entrepreneurism in 2015. And you have to see that in conjunction with the next step, 2016 National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme was introduced. And yes, it took a little bit of time for awareness to grow about the National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme. It was fully implemented in 2018. But from 2019, 2020, we don't have a graph to show the growth here, but it has doubled in growth every year from 2018 to now. And it was mostly driven by NAPs as well as by optional trades, which I had said it before, gives companies the liberty to create their own courses. So the timeline here ends at 2021. We have 2022 already. We have big discussions right now about further simplifications of apprenticeship to make it even more industry friendly. This is something to look out for. I say this to our industry participants in this webinar, but do not wait until further simplifications come. Get started right away, because as it is already, it is a very industry-friendly scheme. There are lots of benefits to all participants, but especially towards industry. And the time to get started in apprenticeship is not when further simplifications come, but the time to get started is now. Especially also in light, it's not there to plug the immediate staff shortage gaps, but it is something to plan for the midterm to long-term needs. So it is the basis for a sustainable HR strategy. I'm not sure if another slide is coming, Satya. We go back to the legal part. Okay. Now that we have the slide, I'm just going to do what is on the right-hand side. That's the eligibility. Any company that has less than 3 employees is not eligible. It is optional for those between 4 employees to 29, that is less than 30 employees, and above 30 employees is mandatory. It's not the law that is enforced, so the government doesn't go out and fine companies that do not take in apprentices. Rightly so, Government of India and NSDC and other stakeholders believe that it should be a voluntary activity, driven by a good understanding of the benefits that accrue through apprenticeship to all the participants. But you see there is the bandwidth, a minimum of 2.5% and a maximum of 15% of employee strength is allowed. Some states do allow more than 15%. Telangana, I believe, is not part of those states. As far as eligibility for candidates is concerned, there'll have to be at least class 5 pass-outs, 14 years of age, and some jobs in industries that are hazardous, it is required to have a minimum age of 18 years. I think that should be enough for this slide. Except, yes, maybe one thing, that the legal nature of an apprenticeship is always that there is an apprenticeship contract that says so on the right-hand side. So it is a formal sort of, it's not employment, but it is a formal arrangement under a contract between the firm and the apprentice. And the contract basically says that the firm is to provide the opportunity for the training and the learning, and the apprentice should make his or her best effort to learn the trade, in return for which, of course, he or she will get a stipend. So let's leave it at that on the legalities. I'd be happy to entertain the next slide, if there is one, or pass over to the colleague from NATS. Let's skip this one here. I think that is hugely detailed. That's the hand-holding. So either we'll do any questions or we'll go to NATS for the remaining part.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Paul, Jan, thank you very
Mm.
much. I think Paul has covered this part while speaking on that particular slide.
Mm.
So the only difference being between NAPS and NATS is that, NATS is specifically for degree and diploma holders.
Right.
So any degree, like
Yeah.
it can be BA, BSc or
Mhm.
BCom, and then diploma engineering. And other than that, all the terms and conditions remain same.
Yeah.
And
So in case an industry, they are asking themselves, what is the right thing for us? Is it NAPS or NATS? Then the answer to that would be NAPS is basically for the freshers, and NATS is basically for the university graduates. And if you look at it this way, then it also makes sense to have the difference in the minimum stipend, because the university graduates brings in a higher educational achievement, would be more immediately productive to the company. And so therefore, it is only fair to say that they should also have a higher minimum stipend there. Okay, that's enough for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think so. This is a quick update. I would like to thank you, Jan,
Yeah,
for
sure.
the
Welcome.
presentation so far. And I would like to talk about the support system that we tried to establish here through this working group. So we have put together some of the TPAs who are part of the working group, and also we have mentioned all the list of TPAs that is available in India in different states, in different locations. So once this meeting is over, I will be sending out this presentation to all the participants here, and you can refer to this particular, the presentation and the slide for the support system. And from the government side, we also have some designated authorities, like, specific to Telangana, we have Mr. A. Venkateswara Rao, who is the Director of Regional Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. And we have Mr. K. Srinivas Rao, who is the Director of MSD, and Ms. Pankuri from, again, NSTC. So the team can resolve if there is some issue with respect to any technicalities or process and all these kind of things with respect to NAPS. For NATS, we have Mr. Paul Edward, who will be supporting for any kind of difficulties or registration and anything. Okay, and we also have skill council. So here specifically I mentioned IT, ITES, and healthcare and pharma, but we have a complete set of skill. We have around 33 or 34 skill councils. The list is available here. So organizations who are part of this different skill council can look into that. And basically this whole ecosystem works in this way, like the sector skill council and the organizations, and we all up together, we can work together to increase the number of apprentices. So this is all about the apprenticeship systems and all. So if there is any questions, probably we can take it up. I can see there is something coming up here. So the question here, are you able to see, Jan, my screen?
Yeah, the question is for me, for NATS actually. So the current system is the existing one where the provision is only for engineering graduates and diploma holders. But as of now, we are doing it on a manual basis. So we send a manual contract. So we are sending a manual contract form to the industries. They will fill it accordingly and they have to send it back to Chennai. So this is the manual process till the system has been updated. So the system will be updated in maximum 1 or 2 months. So the current system, which is not having the option for enrolling BA, BSc candidates, will be updated shortly. So once it is updated, we will let you know. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. There is another question. I will just try to bring up my. Yeah, this is related to. You are able to see my screen. It came in WhatsApp. So maximum stipend is not mentioned. Only minimum wage are defined in the gazette. So I think for this question, Jan has already clarified that government has defined a minimum stipend that we need to, or the industry need to pay to the candidates, but there is no cap on the maximum thing, because an organization can pay as per their, budget, their standards and their, criteria and all. So there is no upper limit defined by government. I think so far these are the questions came.
Mhm.
You also see any other
So
thing?
Satya, I cannot see the questions. If there are any that I should answer, then you might want to read them out to me. But I think the maximum stipend question is fully answered. It's also something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, there wouldn't be a maximum wage for or maximum salary for any job either. And the same thing goes for stipends.
Yeah. Okay, I do not see any other questions. Okay. The next question is, Jan, can you please see this? Can
Oh, now
overtime
it
and
comes.
bonus
Yes,
be-
sir.
Yeah,
Can
yeah,
overtime and bonus be
provided?
provided? Bonus meaning overtime, yes, can be done. Sure. Yeah. Overtime has to be in limits in line with regulations, but bonuses, overtime compensation, this is all possibility. It shouldn't be limited in the first place because the apprenticeship contract is a contract and a voluntary contract between the apprentice and the establishment, and keep regulation out of it as much as possible and as much as necessary to safeguard the social interest of the apprentices and of the youth. So any child labor kind of practices are not allowed, of course. But other than that, it is free to negotiate and to have a contract between the two parties. An apprenticeship, legally speaking, is basically a voluntary contractual relationship between two parties who can decide what to do and what not to do. What they have to abide by is the minimum stipend. What they have to abide by is the course of the apprenticeship as provided under designated trades by the occupational standard, optional trades, under the trade standard that has been curated by the industry or by a group of industries themselves. Of course, that is, so to speak, an attachment to the contract, and it needs to be roughly followed.
Can I add, Mr. Satya, to
Yes.
the
Yeah,
overtime? Actually, the Act says for the Apprentice Act, overtime is not allowed, but the apprenticeship advisor can give special approval if the overtime is for the benefit of the trainees.
Yeah.
So that is what the Act says.
Yeah. Thanks for adding.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So we have next question here. I'm sure you are able to see the screen. So can we hire under NAPS for any industry or sector?
Did not get this one.
Yeah, is it open to all sectors, or there is some specific industry that NAPS can be done?
Sure, all sectors are possible. There are 36 sector skill councils that cover the gamut of all sectors and industries.
Okay.
So next one is for NATS. Is registration process is NAT?
No, this one. Whether we can generate backdated contract in NATS.
Yeah, the current system actually supports backdated in the current financial year, not in the previous financial year. For example, 2000. Now we are in the 2022-23. Suppose in case you want to create a backdated contract, say the 1st of April 2022, then it is possible. Not in the previous financial year. In the current financial year, yes, the backdated is allowed with the current system as of now.
Okay, very good questions and answers today. Okay, the next one is registration process same for NATS as NAPS in current portal?
Paul, you want to take it?
No, sir, Mr. Yan, you will be the right person because I'm
Okay.
only on nuts.
Well, at least it was a question out of courtesy. No, it's two separate programs, it's two separate portals, so it's also two separate registration processes. Having said that, we're working towards a joint portal for both programs, but we don't know how much integrated the registration process is going to be. It's going to be a good step forward to have one portal because it'll solve some of the uncertainties and confusion in the general public as far as the differences of the two programs are concerned. And if you have one portal, you can immediately see the similarities and the difference, and it'll be for better guidance. But at this point, separate registration processes, my guess is that under a unified portal, it will continue to be separate registration processes. But let's see.
Yeah, and the participants can see this particular screen in the bottom left. So there are two different links for registration. So for NAPS, it is apprenticeshipindia.gov.in, and for NATS, it is different. So yeah. So we'll move to the next question. Under NAPS, the benefit from government is rupees 1,500 per month. Will it be for 12 months or 36 months? I think it is for Jan.
Yep. It'll be limited to 12 months in the future, whereas up to now it has been for the period of the apprenticeship, which was a maximum of 36 months, but expected to come down to 12 months limited.
Okay. Okay. Next question is for Paul. So can you quickly elaborate a little bit more on NATS and also the registration about in a single state or multiple location like that?
Yes, sir. There is a portal, mhrd.nats.gov.in. You have to enroll as an establishment there. It is a self-explanatory process. If you select the establishment and what is the it'll give you a list of documents which has to be uploaded in the portal. Once you have all these documents, for example, the company profile, the POSH document, the latest IT return, the structured training module, 4 or 5 documents, it will ask if all these documents has been ready with you. And remaining things will be a normal questionnaire type, like the organization, whether it is a pan-India, this one, and what is your total manpower and how many apprentices you require, etc. It is like a self-explanatory questionnaire only, which when you are going through, it will be very easy to follow. So if you have any doubts on that, I will surely be there to support. I think it is self-explanatory and very easy. There is no complexness involved in the registration process actually. So the next question, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So Prashant has a question. Do these kind of incentives or benefits really attract students to do apprenticeship? Jan, would you like to take it?
I'll take it. And my answer is, I wish we knew. Because NAPS so that still remains to be seen, but indirectly, yes, I think the answer should be yes, because we have seen, and the evidence is there, that NAPS has been a driver for the growth of apprenticeship, so therefore also for the growth of the number of apprentices, and therefore more and more apprentices have come into the system after NAPS was introduced. So there's a clear correlation. There's a clear correlation that we have there. One of the things that will come in the near future is direct benefit transfer, which means that the NAPS incentive will be paid directly into the apprentice's bank account. And then the experience of the apprentice is going to be more immediately that the apprentice himself, herself is a beneficiary of the scheme. We'll have to examine very carefully whether that is going to make any difference in what way, because the corollary to it is going to be is that if the money doesn't go to the establishment anymore, it might be experienced or seen as that NAPS is not addressed at establishments anymore, which, if you come to think of it, is not true, because it still will reduce the payment that the establishment has to make to the apprentice under the contract. So there's a little bit uncertainty here. Only time will tell us how it's going to work. But indirectly, and that is my answer, yes, NAPS had a very good impact on the experience of the students, that this is a scheme that is wanted and supported by the government and all stakeholders.
Okay.
Mr. Satya,
Yeah.
I think Satya, can you excuse me, sir? Actually, I have to catch a train. So
Sure, Paul. If any other questions will be there, then we will definitely respond through email.
Okay,
Thank you,
okay.
Paul, for joining.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yan. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all.
Yeah. So, Jan, I think there is one thing we can take it up here. A few third-party aggregators giving wrong information, saying that they can create backdated contract.
Mhm.
So I think that need to be reported to apprenticeship@nstcindia.org, right? That's what Arpit is saying.
Mhm. Pitch says he has already answered to it, but
Yeah.
you see, it's a contractual relationship between the TPA and the establishment. So the first priority is that to sort it out amongst each others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is one more thing, yeah.
And if it doesn't work well, the establishment is always free to terminate the contract and either continue to provide the service for themselves, by themselves through the HR department, or choose another TPA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another, I think it's very important one, this one. A third-party aggregator is not providing the services in the prescribed time. To whom should we inform or complain?
Yeah. Again, should be between the establishment and the TPA. If it's something that is grossly against industry practices and standards, the Sector Skill Council, the Skill Council as a mediator, onward to NSDC. If it's a very serious thing, I think it will have to go into the monitoring of the performance of the TPA, and it should be considered also brought to the consideration of the MSDE. But then again, as much as can be sorted out directly in the relationship, which should be a partner-to-partner kind of a relationship, a trustful kind of a relationship. The TPA is a service provider. It should be between them and taken up between them and solved between them.
Okay, thank you, Jan. I think there are some more questions coming for NATS. So, dear participants, Mr. Paul actually, just moved out of the meeting for some urgency. So I will be sending out the answers in email. But one thing I can give clarity, especially for this empanelment of TPA. So right now, NATS is in the process of empaneling different TPAs. So probably they will be reaching out to them, to all the TPAs. So we will send a communication. Okay. Jan, so
yes.
I think another question is there regarding reimbursement. So establishment registered on ABC company and BTP registered on XYZ, and training center is created for ABC company. In this case, reimbursement amount will go to whom?
That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
No, let's not have a general rule here, but decide that on a case-by-case basis. Huh?
Yes. Okay. Devendra, any more questions coming up? Yeah, I think we had a good number of questions today, and we will also circulate the answers to whatever we did not answer. So I think if there are no more questions, we can close the session. And so I have few requests to the participants. One is that I understand some of the participants here today are already engaging apprentices. So our request would be to explore the possibility to increase it up to 15%, which is the maximum capacity. That is one thing. And the organizations who have not yet started apprenticeship, so please reach out to us. We have different third-party aggregators to support, to guide you and all. And also we have guidelines available in the portals, right? So once I share this presentation, I'm sure you will get some information to, which are the portals to be followed and what are the guidelines and all. And still, if you have some clarity needed, then you can definitely reach out to any of these contacts which are mentioned in the slide. Okay, so as a follow-up, we will be sending out an email maybe after 2 weeks just to understand if there is any support required from your side, so that our team can help you out for any difficulty.
Satya.
Yeah.
Yes. In the meantime, we have read and reread the ABC XYZ question.
Yes.
And actually, the answer is clear. The reimbursement goes to the basic training partner.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah,
Well,
I think, I think with this we can conclude the session today. I thank you all participants. Thanks, Jan, for taking us through the complete information about NAPS, and thanks, Paul, for about NATS. So, and we will be sharing this information to all of you. And I hope that this will be useful and helpful for all of you. And also, just to indicate you, there are some apprentice mela happening in different period of time, and we will be keeping you updated about that, and you may participate there to recruit your candidates for that. Thanks to all of you.